All right, guys, today we're here to talk about Frost Death Knight, and I had a very brave soul send me over a Mythic Plus run that he did on Frost Death Knight, and I am going to go through and do a bit of a review. I'm going to sort of cover some of the stuff that I think he did well. I'm going to cover some of the stuff on where he can improve, and hopefully you guys can take some of the knowledge and sort of figure out maybe if you're making the same mistakes, if you're doing a good job on the things he's doing a good job of, and hopefully it helps some people. So here we go. All right, guys, so we have the video here, and it's 26 minutes long. I'm going to skip around a little bit so you guys don't have to watch an entire key, and I'm just going to look for some of the sort of big glaring issues and things that are holding back damage, maybe survivability. I haven't watched this yet, so we're going to be watching it for the first time together. So here we go. I don't use LVUI, so I may be looking, trying to find stuff going on here. So I'm sorry for that in advance, but let's get started. So they're saying, you guys can't see the chat window, but they're saying they're going to lust the first pull. So here they go. Okay. First of all, okay, first things first with your UI. A lot of this stuff looks very cool. I like what you have here. I'm going to roast your UI a little bit. You have damage on this side and damage on this side. I think that's taking up a lot of room. It's a lot of repetitive information. Maybe you like your nameplates like this, but you can go into your settings and change them to be overlapping so that it's not going up through the ceiling, and you can kind of see all of them next to each other, and then when someone's casting, it's very, very obvious. But okay, you've pressed Remorseless Winter, which is good. As you're approaching a pack, you kind of want to press Remorseless Winter and then start sending all of your cooldowns. Now here, okay, we have Pillar of Frost. I know I'm pausing this a lot, I realize that. Okay, here, let's just, I'm gonna see if anyone can kind of guess what went wrong in this opener, okay? And then I'll say something. Okay. Could anyone catch that? So the big issue with the opener here, and why the damage is not as high as it could be, is we did not use Death and Decay immediately. I don't think there was any Death and Decay in the first pull. Now, Death and Decay makes it so that your obliterates are going to cleave. So they're going to hit all the other targets in Death and Decay. So every time you are going into a pack, you want to be using Death and Decay. When Death and Decay expires, you have 4 seconds of the continued buff of Death and Decay. So you can either track this buff with a weak aura, you can kind of just, really just eyeball it a little bit. As soon as Death and Decay is going away, wait a couple seconds, press it again, okay? But that is a huge miss on damage, especially during Lust. You want to be using Death and Decay, cleaving with your obliterates. Alright. Now we pulled that pack there as you ran the fire circle out. It's good that you ran the fire circle out. There's a lot of packs in here, so I'm not really going to fault you too much for pulling those guys. Okay. Now, I see you're tab targeting a lot. That is good. That's very good. You want to be tab targeting, making sure that you're frost striking people that have 5 stacks of Razor Rice. I see you're doing that, so you're doing a good job with that. Okay, I'm not just going to like tell you all the stuff you're doing wrong. I'm going to tell you the stuff you're doing right as well. Again, there should really be a Death and Decay in here. You're missing out on a ton of damage. Okay. Now we sent Frostworm's Fury out. Okay. So Frostworm's Fury, it does a pretty decent amount of AoE damage. The only thing about it is that you want to make sure you use it during Pillar of Frost or during the strength window after Pillar of Frost. And the reason for this is because that increases your damage. You get increased mastery during Pillar of Frost, which is your frost damage. So really, you don't want to just be kind of sending it randomly. These these guys over here seem to have gotten pulled by it. This is a mistake a lot of Frost Death Knights make, including myself. I am guilty of this. Before you ever send that out, and really with Pillar of Frost too, because Pillar of Frost sends a little baby dragon instead of the big ice one, you want to make sure that you are pointing at a wall or somewhere else so that you're not pulling extra packs that way. Okay, again, these are non-elites, not a huge issue, but just something to be aware of, okay? So again, you have all these killing machine procs. They could be hitting everyone in the pack if you just drop Death and Decay. If you take one thing away from this, it is that you should always, always, always be standing in Death and Decay. Another thing that you want to be doing is whenever you get these big packs like this and they're starting to cast and use abilities and stuff, use your Blinding Sleep and just sort of, you know, get a little AoE stop on all of them. So it's not just a little more of a minor thing here, but you want to be using that. There you kind of pulled those targets for the tank. Don't pull for the tank because, especially here, you're fighting a little mini boss. Let the tank kind of pull stuff because you don't know how many cooldowns they have. You don't know what they can kind of handle. So don't go over there pulling extra stuff for the tank because you never know. They could be totally out of cooldowns, or the healer could be totally out of cooldowns and they're tracking that. So just kind of let them do their thing. Okay, again, we're still missing cleave damage there. I see you're moving around a lot. Okay. We just had the thing that I talked about with the... I didn't watch this video before this, okay? This is where Pillar of Frost, you shoot out this little baby frost worm in front of you. And that baby frost worm pulls aggro. So if you send it over there, it will grab aggro. So you kind of just... It's something to be aware of, especially in dungeons like this that are very tight. You don't want to be facing... you don't want to be facing any mobs when you press Pillar of Frost or Frostworm's Fury. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, Skull, this is not... listen, you're telling me how to pull packs and how to not pull packs and all that stuff. I want to know about damage. If you take anything from this video, it is that you need to be dropping Death and Decay to do cleave damage. Okay. And again, I'm sorry, I'm struggling to see a little bit with the LVUI. One more thing that's not damage related, okay? Here, whenever you're pulling these big packs, if you look, you've got all of your defensives off cooldown. Okay? Whenever you're pulling these big pack, fighting a big pack, whenever something else gets pulled, use your defensives. Because by using your defensives before you take the damage, you are going to make sure that you don't have to death strike and you can just be pressing your full damage rotation, not having to worry about your health. Just even if you think like, oh, there's no way these mobs are ever going to hit me, every time you run into a pack, just press, like, AMS it's like a very short cooldown. You can press it every single pack and be totally fine. Just make sure you're at least pressing that every single pull. Icebound Fortitude, you can maybe save for when you're worried. Lichborn with Deathbringer has a short cooldown, so I send either AMS or Lichborn pretty much in every pack. Alright, now we're doing a little bit more damage here. We're still hitting Chewy. Swapping. Again, we need a Death and Decay here. I think it kind of got wasted a little bit. Again, you're doing it. You're dropping Death and Decay at the very start of every pull, so it's there. And then you get the 4 seconds afterwards. And especially when you press Pillar of Frost. Now you're still doing some trash pulls. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, okay? Because I feel like we milked the cow to death a little bit over here on this first section. So we're gonna skip forward a little bit. You're fighting the boss. Something you can do is whenever there's a boss mechanic like that, you know it's fire damage. You always want to move out of it, but just in case, press AMS, okay? Because when you get to the higher keys and you think you're out of it, you think you're right at the edge, because look at this, there's fire over here, right? There's fire, but you can't really tell where it ends perfectly. It'll hit you. There's going to be a time where you think you got out of the way, and it's still going to hit you, and that AMS will save your life, so just pre-press it, okay? Again, I don't want you guys to have to watch the whole 30-minute video, and I know he's probably like, look, I'm not having you review this to watch my 30-minute video. I want to know how to do more damage, so I'm going to skip around a little bit, okay? Okay, so I'm noticing that you're not pressing Frost Strike enough in the single target. So the reason that you want to, you're overcapping a little bit on runic power. So we see here you're at 100 runic power. It's not as big of a deal on Frost as it is on Unholy or Blood, but Frost still matters. And the reason why you want to make sure that you are prioritizing in single target, okay, I know that in AoE you press Obliterate a lot because it cleaves, and Death and Decay if you're standing in it. Frost Strike you want to be using a lot because it spends your runic power and it makes your runes come back faster. So by spending the runic power with Frost Strike, you are going to be getting your runes back faster. You're pressing Obliterate, getting you more runic power to spend, getting you more runes to spend. So that is how you improve your damage, is having a good balance of pressing Frost Strike when you have the runic power for it to get you the runes to press Obliterate. So make sure even in single target you are pressing Frost Strike. It is a very high priority button. Not just when they're at 5 stacks of Razor Rice, okay? You're pressing it sort of really on cooldown, unless there's a Killing Machine proc or a Howling Blast proc. You should be pressing Frost Strike essentially on cooldown when you have the runic power for it. So now we've looked at a little bit of a trash pull. We've looked at a little bit of a single target boss fight. Let's skip forward a little bit. This hallway is always a mess with the charges from the hobgoblins. So as we walk up here, you're doing a really good job of pressing Remorseless Winter as you're walking into a pack. I like that. You're doing good on that. Again, you want to be dropping Death and Decay here, okay? So I'm still seeing a big miss on every Obliterate that you press could be hitting all of these people. Imagine your damage when that button is hitting everyone around you and not just the person that you're targeting. So again, Death and Decay, Death and Decay, Death and Decay. Press it, stand in it, and it will cleave everyone. Okay, so I'm sure you know what went wrong right there. I'm sure you realize that was maybe not the best aiming of that mechanic, right? I don't want to skip 30 seconds. Right, but aiming the Hobgoblin charge down there to pull the other pack, not ideal. That was probably just a little bit of a mistake, but these things happen though. But yeah, just be careful with that. You got Death and Decay going here, which is why, by the way, look, before you were third in damage. You put a Death and Decay down, you're second, you're almost first, right? So remember this. Death and Decay, Death and Decay, Death and Decay. Make sure that you are interrupting here. Again, we missed Death and Decay. I know I'm repeating it, but I really want to drill it in because you're missing so much damage by not using Death and Decay on every pull. And it's a short cooldown. I mean, sometimes I use it like in the same pull if we don't kill it fast enough, just to have more damage. Okay, that other pack got pulled, which is kind of sketchy. You have a Death and Decay here, this is good. Here's one where you want a Blinding Sleet, right? Because all these other guys got pulled that people weren't ready for. So you want to just give them some breathing room, man. Help them. You're a Death Knight. You gotta just tell them to chill. Hit them with the Blinding Sleet. Just give everyone a second, right? Let the Demon Hunter sigils come back. Okay, that was another kind of sketchy charge. That could have been a lot worse. Here, okay, we see this stuff on the ground, and if it glows, what's the rule? It probably does magic damage, right? So be pressing AMS here just to be safe around these sort of puddles. You never know if you're just going to be on the edge of it and it's just going to do damage to you. A lot of the mobs here, they cast, and they cast random players. Some of it's interruptible, some of it's not. So you just always want to pre-use your defensives. Here was just a bit of a mess because the boss got pulled. I mean, typically what you're supposed to do if you're ever tanking this is you want to go and clear the whole room before the boss spawns, okay? And I know this wasn't your fault here. You're hitting the boss, you need to be hitting the affix. I see the affix right there. Always, always, always focus the affix, because it will give the boss a buff instead of you. The affix is a free damage buff. You guys, looks like you got it anyways. I think the warrior got it there. Okay, do more damage on the boss. I'm still seeing there's some big overcap on runic power. Again, you want to be sending frost strikes. The two biggest mistakes that I'm seeing with damage specifically is not death and decay, and you're overcapping like crazy on runic power when you need to be pressing frost strike to get yourself some runes back, which is sort of messing with your cycle. Look, Frost is an easy spec comparatively for Death Knight. I know that. I play Frost too, so that's not like a dig on like the spec you're playing. I enjoy Frost, but a lot of the nuance in Frost comes with managing your buffs, right? Managing Pillar of Frost and Death and Decay, your with Deathbringer, your Reaper's Mark, all that sort of stuff. The other thing that's matters with Frost, it's going to make you do a lot of damage versus a little damage in a single target, is going to be how much you are overcapping on your runic power. You want to be managing, you have 2 resources. A lot of specs only have like 1, okay? You've got runes and runic power. These are both things that you need to be tracking very, very closely, because if you're not spending your runic power to get your runes back, you're missing out on a lot of damage. So you just want to make sure you're paying attention to that, okay? And here you should be focusing the ads. Okay, the boss will die eventually as long as the ads don't reach it. So you should be going back. You should be blinding them and gripping them and slowing them with chains. I see you Death and Decay snared there. That was good, but see, the ads still reach the boss. You need to be focusing, prioritizing the ads in these fights. Here we go. You started looking at the ads now. I think you were kind of like, oh shit, I've got to... Can't let those reach the boss, right? So I do appreciate you adapting and adjusting on the fly. I think that is good. The fact that you're able to realize those mistakes and then adjust. Here, okay. This is where pre-pressing defensives becomes very, very important, right? Because had you pre-pressed AMS, IBF, or Lichborn, I'm just guessing here that you're gonna die. When that stuff came out, you probably would have lived. Okay, and I realized, is that your healer? That's your healer is dead, right? But you would have been able to live with one of your defensives pressed, and then death striking the boss. But yeah, okay. So, look, pre-press your defensives always. Always, always, always. Oh, you get up. Okay. Paladin battle res you. Nice. I'm guessing you get the kill. Okay, cool. You said might be. At least you had a friendly a friendly group here. Okay. I know we said it before, but that was sketchy, man. You have to know that that was a sketchy frost worm. Dude, those things they have aggro, man. It's gonna pull. You're very lucky that you did not hit this guy right here. Look, go behind the mobs, and then Frostworm, Pillar Frost back the other way, okay? Well, there you tab targeted and you hit him anyways. I know you're probably rushing. You're like, look, we've only got 13 minutes left. We got to pull. You can't pull for the tank, man. You cannot pull for the tank because you're not tracking his cooldowns. He may have no cooldowns left, and that the way that tanks work right now, okay, just so you're familiar, you know, this is only a 6, but still, if a tank doesn't have cooldowns and they get hit, they can just die from a melee attack. Tanking right now is tough because there was a survivability nerf across all tanks, and so they have to, the same way that you're using Pillar of Frost to do damage, they have abilities that keep them alive. So like they have essentially a defensive version of Pillar of Frost where they need to press it to stay alive in a fight. And if you pull that stuff the same way that you don't do damage if you don't have Pillar of Frost, they don't survive if they don't have their version, right? So if you pull that stuff and they're not ready, I know you gotta go, but it's gonna take longer if you wipe. So don't pull for the tank. Unless he tells you at the beginning, like, hey, grip things in. The way that you kind of want to be helping as a Death Knight with that sort of stuff, it seems like what you're trying to do is you're trying to help, you're trying to bring stuff over to you, right? What you want to do is once the tank has aggro, you want to be gripping in sort of the far ones. And here, let's back up a little bit to the hallway and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, right? Okay, this guy has aggro right here. You have 2 death grips. You don't want to pull for the tank, but whenever there's ranged adds like this, your job as Death Knight is to go grab that guy and bring him in. Death grip this guy in. You make everyone's lives easier, and they'll never thank you for it as Death Knight, because what you do, and all the tanks are freaking out because they're trying to fight for aggro on this guy right now. Every time you're pressing an ability, and they've got nothing. He's got nothing to get that guy's attention besides taunt, which has a cooldown. So you make the tank's life easier by gripping this guy in. You make your own life easier because you're going to do more damage, and you're going to cleave him. So I know we're backing up a little bit, but I just want to prove a point here. Right, so after this pack is pretty much already dead, that guy is still at full health. And that makes the pulling really tough, because then you're in this weird position, right, where you're fighting like 2 people, and nobody wants that. It doesn't push you very far and like very fast because no one's really sending cooldowns on 2 people, so you end up taking like a lot longer. So whenever you see a ranged like that, grip them in, blind them, drop Death and Decay, start getting some cleave. Don't pull for the tank, but you want to be gripping in those ranged. Let's see if there's any. Okay, you do the mechanic. Good job. I'm proud of you for that. I won't. That was the main thing I was gonna catch. If you weren't doing that, here you can still drop Death and Decay, cleave the bees if you want. Oh, you do. You do. Okay, perfect. Good. You did what you needed to do here. Again, how's rank power looking? Yeah, you're doing what you need to do in this boss. You pre-press AMS. You drop an anti-magic zone for some people. By the way, AMS. I'm using abbreviations. AMS is anti-magic shell. It says green defensive right there. It prevents the application of magical effects and puts an absorb on you for some magic damage. But yeah, you did good on this boss. You did what you needed to do. You did the mechanic. You had good damage on the boss. Cleaved the ads. That's what you need to do. Okay, again, here, I know you think you're dodging that stuff, and you dodged it, but pre-press AMS, man. You know that it's fire damage. It looks like fire. It's magic, right? Unless someone's hitting you with a sword, this is a good button to press, always, just in case. Here, okay, you swap to the affix. Did we miss that affix? You gotta swap back to the affix, man. Yeah, see, you're taking a lot of damage there. Make sure that you are pressing AMS. Here, you know, a fire circle is going to go off on you. Press AMS. Just pre-press your defensives. But your single target damage is good. It's just the only issue that I'm seeing on your single target damage is overcapping your runic power. Let's see you get the kill, and then I will sort of give a little summary of what I'm seeing. Okay. So the things that I would recommend that you work on. Okay. Well, let's start, you know what? Let's start with the things you're doing right. The things that you are doing right are single target. You're doing good damage in single target. You are pre-pressing Remorseless Winter as you are walking into a pack. That is very good. You're spending your procs as they're coming up. I'm seeing you use Howling Blast. I'm seeing you use Killing Machine. Now the things that you need to work on, if you want, you know, your partials to go up, and you want to push higher keys with more damage, get more gear, you need to be making sure that you are pressing Frost Strike to spend your runic power when you have the ability. So here, if you were hitting the boss right, obviously you're still going to press Killing Machine because it is a Killing Machine proc. But if you didn't have a Killing Machine proc right now, and you had the choice between Obliterate or Frost Strike, you would need to be pressing Frost Strike, okay? That is a mistake that I've seen. Other thing, don't be pulling for the tank. Be careful where you're aiming your abilities. Grip in the range. And finally, you know the last thing that I'm going to say. Drop Death and Decay in every pack. You do good damage with your cleave. Or with your single target, sorry. Let it cleave. Let it hit all of them. And that is about it, man. Hopefully this is helpful. Thank you for watching this full video. And look, if anyone else wants a video or review for any Spec of Death Knight in any form of content, let me know, and I'm happy to do that. So thank you again for watching.